that intellectual stimulation of solving things that are not easy to solve, pricing for things that are future outcomes. It's not like pricing a widget and working on margins. There's much, much more to it than that. And then I also found that pretty quickly on, I started cut my teeth in the auto insurance space. Mm-hmm. And when you're talking about the marquee, most challenging, hyper-competitive brands with the lowest margins and all that stuff, that should make people run away. And instead, it made me run to it.
So welcome, Tom. I want to start with explaining what I see this Insurance Experience podcast to be about. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I've come to appreciate about insurance now, and especially this industry, is how there are so many people who work in this industry not because this is a vocation for them, a job for them, but because there's just an incredible amount of passion and desire to work in this industry. And so my goal with this podcast is to surface those people that have that spark, that passion about the industry, and to dig into why they have this passion. Right. And with that, obviously we learn a lot more about what's happening in the industry, but I'm excited today to talk to you because as I think about the people that I believe are the most passionate about the insurance industry, you're, one of the most sort of significant impacts on me and my life and, driving my passion for this industry. So I wanted you to be a part of this. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here and to talk with you today about this topic. And so excited about how we're going to be serving consumers and how customers will benefit, how the industry will be better because of the things that we're going to do. And you're right that I'm very passionate about the industry, and I know you are too. And that makes it very fun for me.
So let's start with maybe you sharing a little bit about your journey. Like what got you here? Why did you choose insurance? Mm-hmm. And then maybe end with what do you do today?
So my journey would include kind of falling into insurance, if you will, which many of us do. Many of us don't have an aspiration to being in the insurance business when we graduate college, do the things that we do. And my story is much like that, right? Mm-hmm. But once I got into insurance, really very early on, I understood that, boy, this is an incredibly interesting business, right? And for me, that intellectual stimulation of solving things that are not easy to solve, pricing for things that are future outcomes. It's not like pricing a widget and working on margins. There's much, much more to it than that. And then I also found that pretty quickly on, I started cut my teeth in the auto insurance space. Mm-hmm. And when you're talking about the marquee, most challenging, hyper-competitive brands with the lowest margins and all that stuff, that should make people run away. And instead, it made me run to it, right? I was like, this is fantastic. We have to figure out how to outflank, and we're using tiny differences to make marginal gains versus competition. And I had the very fortunate experience as a young person in the business to be a part of a company that grew from 90 million to 1.4 billion. And that really laid the foundation for kind of how I thought about that.
When you were sort of riding that wave and working at this company, did you folks always know that there was something special about the company itself or the approach that they were following?
You know what was special, I think, is we had a couple of things going for us. We had a really, really great leadership team, mm-hmm. right? Jim Gober, who was my mentor, was just fantastic. And it was so great to watch him do what he did every day. And I learned early on that our ability to focus on the things that actually mattered and to keep the consumer at the forefront of everything we did would be the thing that separated us. And it turned out that's absolutely true. And we landed on a certain consumer and a very stratified approach to the market. We didn't have to go up against the giants in everything we did. We could go up against, kind of carve out our space, own our space. That was very, very helpful. One of the things I did learn that I think is interesting, as you and I have talked and as we got to know each other better, is what I didn't know then during that journey that I know now is once we've got to be a sort of mature business and we were publicly traded and all that stuff, I began to realize that's not where I wanted to be. I love the people, if that makes sense. Yeah. I love the business. I care deeply about it. But I'll tell you, I like the build. I found that was what excited me. How do we figure out how to serve more customers better, faster, and not how do we make it 5% better than it was last year? How do we cut costs by 2% so that our margins are better and we feel great about our valuation in the stock market? That didn't excite me. I like the building. I like the figuring out the tough problems and trying to figure out go to market, and it's transforming the industry in some way, which I think is part of why I am here today, right?
Mm-hmm.
As you obviously know, we met kind of in an interesting way, a friend of a friend, if you will.
Yeah.
And then that has spurred us to have conversations, and those conversations have led us to this point today, which I serve as the president of Liberate, and have you as my leader and boss as we go on this journey together to make experiences better for consumers and to transform the market. So I could not be more excited. The build is what I love, and your passion is so contagious that I think that really makes for a great team for us.
One of the things that I've often learned about business is there's always winners and losers.
Yep.
And often companies or individuals that are incredibly successful in an industry come with some unique insight that's special, that's different. As you've, been in this industry for a while, do you believe that many of the companies that have won, either selling software to this industry or, insurance carriers or agencies, that there has been a value to a unique insight and that winners have come in with a unique insight?
Yeah, I think that's the cool part of the industry. One of the things I would say is if you think about just the carrier as a general rule, the carrier innovation is generally pretty low. They have rate filings and regulatory environments, and everybody has the same notice of cancellation and the same renewal documents, and everybody works within a similar group of core systems. And so there's not much innovation, and we're a sort of a stale industry in that respect. What I love about what we do and what other businesses can do in the industry is sit outside that, be a helper to those carriers that are living the dream of the doldrums of every time I make a change, the department approves it and everybody else can emulate it.
Yeah.
My advantages are short-lived and this, that, and the other. And people make bad pricing decisions and I have to suffer market share for it. All that stuff is madness, but I love that we sit outside that. We are a helper to those businesses. We are an accelerant to what they're trying to accomplish. And what they're trying to accomplish could be that kind of fit in our wheelhouse. Either it's reduce margins so they can reduce price so they can attract more people, or it's delivering outstanding service in a way that could never have been delivered before. And so I see what we're doing as an example of the sweet spot in insurance, right? This is a sweet spot. So we are innovating something that was not able to be accomplished before, and that gives us great, great value in the market.
What do you think is unique about how we are providing value?
I guess the biggest thing for me, and of course you're the technology guru, I'm the industry insider a little bit. We both cross over a little bit, but that's kind of how we view the world, right? We have different skill sets that complement each other, and that's fantastic. But when you look at it, all the things that I'm seeing that we can do were things that were not possible to be done not very long ago at all, right? And so it's indisputable that what we're doing is going to add great value into the marketplace. Consumers, carriers, agencies, all stakeholders will be better for it, right? It's indisputable. And so the challenge or the interesting part for us is how do we deploy our assets in the right way to help the most people possible and to have the greatest impact? And how do we have a brand that can lead the market down this path in what otherwise is a very highly regulated, slow to change, antiquated in some ways business? How do we shepherd people because of our expertise, shepherd people into environments that helps them achieve what they're trying to achieve? The other thing I like, as a guy that likes to compete, right? You and I both love to compete, right? We had a team bowling event last night, if I might be so bold, and everybody on our team was competing. And the energy was so high, and I love it. And by the way, neither of us need to give up our day job for a bowling career. I'm sure of that, right? Sure of that, right? But what I see there is What we have the ability to do is we have the ability to infuse, I'll call it juice. We can infuse juice into our partners in such a way that they have a dramatic competitive advantage, right, over people who don't choose what we do. And there are not many dramatic competitive advantages in the insurance space, right? These are small changes usually. That's not what we're talking about.
Yeah.
We can actually help a carrier, as an example, or an agency, as an example, absolutely outflank people who were bigger than them, who have always been considered better than them, who have more people than them. In fact, we can take the things that were their strengths and we can empower the smaller business to now outflank and outcompete them.
Yeah,
And it
correct.
could never have been done before. So
Yeah.
I love the transformative nature of what we're doing.
So I think you picked on something really interesting, the idea of competition, right? I love a competitive dynamic because I think, competitive dynamic helps you understand, as you call it, the big rocks, the big important things that are really important for a company. And, and no industry has as much of a competitive dynamic in my experience as what I've seen in the insurance industry, right? There's lots of big players, but a lot of
right.
smaller, very targeted players that are all focused on specific aspects of the industry. And so creating and enabling them to compete better is what really excites me about what we do. I want to take a step back and I want to touch on a topic that I've learned a lot from you. Maybe let me sort of set some context here. When I entered the insurance industry, I came in with this perspective that technology can solve all the problems that exist.
Right.
And, through a lot of humility, I learned, or maybe something that gave me a lot of humility, I learned that that's actually not the case, right? Like this industry is about people and processes and delivering value and creating value, and technology is an enabler that everyone talks about. I have come to appreciate within this specifically the role of the insurance agent. Technology has often been about disintermediation, right? We will reduce the middle players. We will have fewer people between the consumer and the carrier and all of that stuff. But the stuff that's been eye-opening for me is recognizing how important the agent is. So if I go sort of, go back into, your experience and as you've seen this industry evolve, what's changed about the role of the agent and what stayed the same?
Yeah, that's a great question. First of all, I have to go back on one thing you said there. Part of the thing that endeared you to me, the thing that I found so refreshing as we first met, and you'll remember this story, is you have this unbelievable talent and perspective from a technology standpoint. And that's amazing. And there are others. We're in an area of the world today, in California here, where there are others that have similarly, pretty informed perspectives. The challenge is, and the thing that you have is, you've actually built and nurtured an insurance carrier. You've done the work. You saw how hard it is, how challenging it is, and all that. And that humility that taught you that, hey, maybe technology is not going to solve every last problem that we have, and we still have to have some interaction with customers and this, that, and the other, was what attracted me to this opportunity, right? Because I get it. So the advantage that we have because of you as a business is that not only are you a great strategist and technology guru, you've also have a history of bringing people together that have these skill sets. But more importantly, you understand the business, right? And you've lived the hard life of being a carrier, which has had to have agents, which has had to serve consumers. And so all that matters, right? And this is a bad way to put it. Johnny New Guy, who knows a lot about technology coming into this industry, I've seen it fail 1,000 times, right? Because you almost need a few of those battle scars to go in there and do what we're trying to do. In talking about the agents and the fact that you appreciate this, it's been interesting to me to watch, because we thought there was a day and time that everybody said, boy, the day of the agent is over.
Yeah.
Right. They're gonna end, and there's all this direct to consumer and this, that, and the other. And we're building all these digital tools for self-serving. Everybody's going to want self-service, and generation this is never going to do that. And all that stuff has happened. And at the end of the day, we look back now and we say, who are the winners in the space? There's been a market resurgence of the independent agent, right? The person that has multiple brands, right? In states where some brands that are giant don't like being in certain geography, or they don't like certain markets at any given time. The agent that can bring to bear multiple brands is in an advantaged position, and they have value to the carriers in the marketplace, right? So it seemingly was going away, and now it's never more firm than ever before. And the next thing that's interesting to me is we built all these digital tools, and at some point in time, for certain events, consumers want to talk to somebody about what's going on.
Yeah, that
right?
surprises me the most, I think.
And me too, really,
yeah.
honestly. As a carrier side, how much time, energy, effort we spent to design the perfect app, right? And having all these digital tools, and we're optimizing things and making sure people, and where they fall off, we're making it better. And you can make your payment here, and it's so easy. And we advertise it so much, and everywhere you go, we try not to publish phone numbers. And at the end of the day, people still find a way, despite what you want to. And so it strikes me that maybe we should lean into that rather than run away from it. And our agency partners or agents in a community that serve insurance carriers, they are really sort of the first line of defense for this, right? They're the ones that are telling us, hey, there's still people that want conversations here, right? They still value what I do, and the carriers have to start seeing it differently, and the community has to see it differently. So that's been interesting. I think the last thing I would say about that is when I think about the carrier and agent relationships and the vendor partners and all that, I think it's easy to think about those as all separate entities or separate buckets. That's not how I view this world, right? At the end of the day, we have a consumer of an insurance product. If we just gauged everything around that consumer, there's money to be made, and there's value to be derived by doing that. And if you think about it, what has changed is consumers are probably more demanding now. And the fact that they're more demanding means they don't want to live in a 9-to-5 world. I mean, they don't, some of them work in a 9-to-5 world, and it's not very convenient in the middle of their day, their professional day, to call their insurance person, whether it be carrier or agency, and get something done, right? It doesn't work. So things like that are probably the more interesting game changers, is that people are no longer satiated or satisfied with the status quo of, hey, that business opens when they want to.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's been a giant change. And there are certain events. Think about a claim event, for example. I mean, you've been paying, I keep it in the most granular consumer level area. You've been paying $3,000 a year for auto insurance, and you've never used it. Right?
Yeah.
You made every payment religiously. You've done everything they told you to do. They probably changed your coverage 5 times, and your policy's been evolved, and now your homeowner's not connected with your auto anymore. All this stuff has gone on, and all you know is you pay $3,000, and now you have that first claim.
Yeah.
And you know what? You don't want a digital path. You want somebody to show, you want something, you want a voice experience. You want to get somebody that says, it's okay, put their hand on your back and say, I got this, right?
Yeah.
And it means so much. And so I think one of the things that we can do is create some of those things in a very, very scalable and cool way.
I think to touch on that, what surprised me the most was, as I sort of spent time in the industry and I, spoke with consumers, spoke with carriers, is that here's an industry where consumer is going to spend anywhere from $400 to $4,000 a year.
Right.
And they'll keep paying you money with the expectation that, hey, I'm hoping I never need help from you.
Right.
But the day I do, I want you to be there for me.
Yes.
And in this transfer of value, the most surprising thing was that the person on the other side receiving the money said, great, I will be there for you. They promised that. Mm-hmm. But then when the time came to be there, they said, oh, wait, I'm only available either from 9 to 5.
Right.
Or, you can go online and in this, completely human-less experience, interact with me. And that was surprising. And it's contradictory to how one would imagine that experience to go, right? And so that realization that, we have to, because of this sort of the nature of this industry, creating, and the fact that you're taking money from someone, creating the right way for providing service back to them is important. Exposing all the ways that maybe they want to interact with you is important, right? Some may actually just want to open up an app and interact with you. Then that's perfect.
Provide that,
but others would want you to speak with them.
That's right.
And providing the service, being available for the consumer on their terms is so incredibly important.
The other thing that you and I have run into, right? We've had the opportunity to, because of what we do, have insights into some really giant, successful businesses that we talk to about our technology and how we make it help them in their path, in their journey. And we've been surprised at how many, many great businesses, brands that I would never name here, are really pretty awful at a lot of stuff. I mean, it's a shame to say, but they really are. And one of the examples we run into time and time again that you and I've, if you're an insider, you kind of say, well, that's just how it works. But if you're an outsider like we are now in our roles, you would say that makes zero sense. And one of those things is, okay, there's a peak call time in an agency or a carrier, and a person is calling up on Friday. I still kind of think about the old day. I grew up in small town, right? So on Friday afternoon, people would pay their bills. They got paid and now they're going to pay, right? And so there's a concept that says that, okay, during a peak time, they're maybe not Friday afternoon anymore, but there still are peak times. People are trying to give you money. There's a person that's got a $4,000 auto and home insurance policy, and they have a payment due of $726, and they're trying to make it, and they're put on a long hold time just to give you money. And the carrier can't sit back and feel good about that, right? And they can't say, well, we built all these digital assets, they should have done it. The person is trying to give you $726.
Yeah.
They have been paying you money. Figure out a way to take it in a way that is pleasing or at least meets their need of what they see, right? And we may think it's crazy. Why don't they use it? We have to make our digital assets better. That's always what I've thought. I mean, as a carrier, that would be my hat. Okay, we didn't make our digital asset good enough, and that's the reason they're doing that. I don't think that's always it. I think the person just wants to know for sure that they are paying the right amount at the right time, and doing it, and they're in keeping with the policy terms, or just that they're good. We're okay. It's becoming more commonplace because you're seeing in California, Florida, property disruption markets where the auto is with, I'll make it up here. The auto's with Progressive, the boat's with Geico, the home's with Tower Hill, the excess policies here, their healthcare's here. They're getting so many bills, and these are not aggregated. They're getting so many bills, they really just don't know if they paid that or not, or if they're supposed to pay it or not. And they're just trying to show, these are the good customers. They're trying to show the right behavior and do the right thing. And so that's just crazy to me that we can't figure out a way to give them an experience that makes them feel confident that they're in good shape. The other thing that I think about, and you and I've talked about too quite a bit, is we look at this, and this is a category we've really been successful in so far, and we'll be more successful as we go. You look at this hurricane-prone states and natural disaster states, right? And you know where I'm going with this. It's not funny. It's tragic, right? So when an event, let's say a hurricane goes through Florida, when that event happens, what happens today is the phone starts ringing in a claims operation because they want to talk to somebody. They don't want to communicate any other way. They actually want to tell their story, right? And when they're calling to tell their story, empathy, all those things are so important. But when they're calling to tell their story, the last thing they need to hear is, please, we can put you in the queue. We're not available. We'll put you in the queue, and you will be served in, and then 12 hours. And you're thinking, 12 hours? I need a blue tarp because there's water coming to my kitchen.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be staying in a Hampton Inn 70 miles from my house because my kids can't go to school. And here's the health insurance company beginning to understand that now this event, which was a property and casualty event, has become a giant healthcare event because anxiety and stress and all that are at their peak because all this other stuff's going on.
Yeah.
And we don't have a way to satiate that. But what we do, we can talk to thousands of people at the same time, and we can help them and get them on a better path. And so there's a lot of things about what we do that are just, kind of socially responsible, helps people at their time of need more so than any company could have done before. You couldn't staff for it before. And so that's super exciting to me. We're changing things for the better, and I love that.
That's amazing. I want to turn back to your experience.
Yep.
And I want you to reflect back over the course of your time in insurance. And tell me about one defining event, one event where you were suddenly exposed to something in the industry that led you to, in a very short period of time, learn quickly about the industry.
Yeah, that's interesting. My formative years in the insurance industry led me to some success in terms of roles and responsibilities and things like that, right? And I think that was mostly just kind of brute force, working hard, those kind of things, caring a lot, that sort of stuff. And then I had the opportunity, I asked for it, but I had the opportunity to have the company at that time, American Financial, invest in my career and send me off to executive MBA school at Emory in Atlanta, right? That was so pivotal to me
Mhm.
because it changed my perspective, right? I began to learn that the things that I thought that were kind of dumb in our industry really were dumb. Other businesses don't operate this way, right?
Mhm.
Our industry does have its unique, it has its appeal, but it also has its struggles, right?
Yeah.
And my friends in this were not in low margin businesses. They were presidents of Coca-Cola and executives at Delta Airlines and doctors, medical doctors who were running Emory Healthcare and now Harvard. All these people were my classmates, right? And so here's what I learned from all that. I learned a lot, and hey, you had the pressure of all the academics while you were working full time and doing all your other stuff. But the thing I learned more than anything else was perspective matters,
Mhm.
right? Perspective matters, and so I wonder sometimes if those of us who've been in the industry a long time really have enough perspective of how it can be done so that we can give that benefit or transform or help our businesses be better. So for me, perspective was a defining moment, right?
And when
And
you say perspective, do you mean perspective about having an opinion, about experience with someone going through?
yeah, it's all that. It's why can't we innovate? Why
Okay,
can't we?
got it.
Why does that experience? Why do we have to be happy with that? Right?
Mhm.
Okay, sure, we threw a Six Sigma black belt at it, but really, is that the limit to what we can do? Not that that's a bad thing, by the way, but is that the limit to what we can do, or could we transform the top question, which is, not how do we make consumer processes better at a lower cost, but the question was, why does it have to be the way it is today?
Mhm.
It's more the why than the how to, right? And the why matters a ton.
You think there's not enough of that happening right
I,
now?
I don't know. The industry is pretty insulated in a lot of ways, right? That's the good and the bad. It's very hard for a person to come into our industry.
Yeah.
Like if you're the CEO, I have an example of a guy I loved working with. He was with Ed Stevens. He was with Progressive. He left and went into the with PepsiCo, right?
Yeah.
And went out and experienced that. And then he came back in the insurance industry, and I had the opportunity to work with him. He was our CEO and my boss, and so I had the opportunity to work with him and to see the Pepsi Cola and the Coca Cola wars and all the Frito Lays and all that stuff like that. You think all that would be mind blowing, and what he says is, no, that's easy. That's shelf space and branding and
Mm.
blah 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 blah. But boy, this insurance thing, I forgot how how challenging this is now that I'm back in it, right? Because it really is it can be a little bit of a confounding industry, right? And I say that as a person who loves the industry.
Yeah.
I'm my youngest son, right? He's just going off to college, right? And I love the kid like I do my other kids, right? Who are already out of college now. But I love him like crazy. And he said the other day, I'm considering, and I hope he won't see this because it'll be personal. I'm considering going to Georgia eventually and getting a risk management degree. And I mean, I leapt, I was like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, it's amazing because I think it's such a great industry. We need people that can do it. But at the same time, I do know that we don't have enough perspective. We don't have enough of that out
Yeah.
there that are really talking about how do we transform and change problems rather than think in the confines of the way we've always thought about it.
This is so interesting. I can provide you, my take on this, and
Yeah,
I
good. I
think
want to hear it. Yeah.
I think a lot about this. I believe that there needs to be more interaction, and I don't know how this is going to happen between the people who work in the insurance industry
Mhm.
and the consumers in the industry.
Yeah.
And I say that because, I again, sort of my story is I came in from a technology perspective. I
Yep.
say, oh, there's, here are all of these, cool pieces of technology that I can build. And, when I was at the company that I previously worked at, which sold insurance, I often heard about problems from our customer support team and
Yep.
from our claims team and our underwriting team. And I said, yeah, we can solve that with technology. And one of the most sort of defining moments for me was when our head of claims said, you're saying all of this. I want you to shadow one of my reps on a couple of phone calls
Yeah.
and listen to the people who are calling in that are either looking for help on a claim or want to file a claim.
Mm-hmm.
And so I spent about 3 or 4 days in the offices, in the claims office, shadowing one of the reps
Yep.
and listening to the calls.
Yep.
And for me, that was a defining experience.
Yeah.
Because the most obvious sort of learning for me was how little I actually knew
Mm-hmm.
about what the people who are calling in, for whom we are building these technology products,
Yep.
and what we really should be doing to provide the right
Oh,
value, right? Like, for
you're so
example, like the
right.
biggest thing was vulnerability. The person who's calling in, filing a claim, is in an insanely vulnerable state,
Yep.
right? And it's not
Yep.
vulnerable where they're quivering or they're,
Right.
they're sad. It's just there's an element of vulnerability. There's financial vulnerability. There is
Yep.
emotional vulnerability, and respecting that vulnerability when providing that service is so incredibly important.
Yep.
And that perspective to me changed how I thought about providing technology solutions into this industry.
Yeah. No, that's so good. That's so good. I think that's one of the gifts you have, right? One of the gifts you have is a sense of empathy, and you can get people behind an idea and all that. And that matters so much. And not all executives carry that. I mean, some come from different backgrounds. They're really good at finance or whatever they're good at, and they bring that perspective in there. But that sense of empathy that you have, and the more you lean into it, the better we and the industry will be at solving problems, right? An executive who has empathy for the consumer's life and sees that journey as something that matters, you would think it would be common, and it's not common. I mean, most executives don't ever step out of the way to go understand that. I've been in the hot sun in Georgia with an adjuster, and I got into the car, right, looking at what the damage would be. I didn't know what I was looking. I mean, I know what cars look like, and I've seen the underside of one, but I didn't know what we were looking at. But it was great because there's an insurer standing there, and there's an adjuster standing there, and this is where the good stuff happens. And I get to be there for that time, and so there's a lot of good that can come from that. I love the industry. I hope I haven't said it any other way. I love the industry. I love the opportunity. I love the way we can serve consumers. I love the way that we help people have a better life. It sounds big and bold, but it really matters. But what I struggle with, or what I see as opportunity, is how we think we do that and how we endeavor to do that, but how we find barriers and we think they're insurmountable. And those barriers do not have to exist on many of the fronts that we take about. One of the things I love is we handle so much stuff that is mundane, right? And that's okay.
Yeah, it matters.
Because mundane matters to the customer, right? We're improving their experience. And so that matters to me. That matters to me.
Awesome. I'm going to end today with one last question. If you could make one prediction about this industry, about where we're headed, about what might happen, what's that one prediction?
I think in many ways, insurance is going to get increasingly more complex. Okay. Complex in the fact of we have climate change. We have lots of different events that are occurring that challenge our ability to serve or our ability to price, right? I think that at one time I thought there were going to be a few giants in the industry, and those are the only guys that are going to make it. I don't think that anymore. I think the smart companies who can react quickly and can take advantage of market opportunities to serve customers will be better off. But the thing that I predict is that as this complexity grows, right, one of the biggest challenges will be figuring out how to keep the simple things simple, right? Serving a customer shouldn't be complicated. Pricing for a storm, in Florida and all the events that can happen is going to get infinitely more complex as we layer in different solutions and we think about different ways. And these events are going to increasingly grow and be more meaningful and material to us. But how can we keep that is simple? How can we, I think that's the one prediction I would say is that things are going to get more complicated, more complex. but I wonder, I struggle, or I hope that we as an industry can find a way to keep the basic tenets of what we actually do, how we serve consumers of insurance products, very simple. And I think that products like the product that we are bringing to market are going to be the solutions to those things. It's funny, on the AI space, which you know infinitely better than I do, I see all sorts of applications. Obviously, I mean, the world is our oyster in some ways. But I think the interesting part is really how can it do some of these things that really, really matter that have not been able to be solved? Like, we've had pricing models before, right? And they've been pretty good. And to the degree they're as good as your competitors, they helped you. But we haven't had the opportunity to solve the problems that we're able to solve with this and to change the carrier dynamics. You realize that the price of insurance in the future will be lower because of what we do. People will be more satisfied and the price will be lower, right? And right now, when you're looking at insurance rates, and we just got through this post-COVID era and the rates are going crazy and all this stuff, and there's been vacation from the market and there's, not availability. Prices have been all-time high and you couldn't even buy it if you wanted it, that kind of stuff. Isn't it nice to know that there's some part of the industry where we're working to serve people better and save them money? That's not a bad place for us to land, right? If we can help carriers save money so they can pass it on to their insured and compete better, and we can help the prices go down, and we can help consumers be more happy and satisfied, I'll take it. I'll take it. That's a good place to be. And that's why I'm so glad to partner with you on this. Let's call it our higher calling, right? Our higher calling. What can we do to make that happen?
Fantastic. Tom, thank you for being on the show.
Pleasure's all mine.
Thank you.